Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Rezolvians, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to discuss what could happen to Rezolve in this upcoming week. The things I like, the potential problems that could arise. Now, the 3F filing on Friday really captured most of the attention when it comes to Rezolve. There's some people that are nervous about tomorrow and how the stock might react. And while I don't know with any degree of certainty, what's precisely going to happen, there's some things that I can say that I'm quite certain about, okay? And we'll talk about that in today's episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. If you guys want to come invest with us, come join the trading community. So, first things first, basically what happened. Let me give you the long story short. We had a good day on Friday. Rezolve was up 2.35%. There was a 3F filing that came out with the SEC and Rezolve. Basically, Rezolve said in their filing they're going to sell 200 million shares of Rezolve at some point in the future. Okay, they basically filed for permission to do that. Like, you can't just randomly go out and issue more shares if they're not already authorized. So Rezolve did that. They put 48 million shares on a at the market offering program with Cantor Fitzgerald and Roth Capital, basically where they can just sell that stock whenever they want. Now, the other 58 million shares or so is like longer term shelf offerings, like private placements, things like that. But 48 million shares could be sold pretty much anytime. One share could be sold a day. 100,000 shares could be sold a day. They could sell all of the shares in a day, right? You get the idea. They have full discretion on when they sell, at what price they sell. Okay. That would be about 15% dilution if they sold all of the shares. Now, the stock would probably fall more than that. It's really impossible for the company to try to dump stock on the market at this point. Why? Because the volume. Look at the volume. You're looking at 15 million volume on a high day and 7 million on a low day. We're talking 48 million shares. That's a lot. That would take a while to sell in and of itself. And you would drive the stock materially lower if you did that. Okay? Now, the filing came out on Friday. The stock did not react to it. I'm not exactly sure what time the filing came out. I believe it was during trading hours. So, like, the stock, if it was seen as negative, I believe would have responded to it on Friday. What it more so tells me, and this is my opinion, is the Rezolve management team believes the stock is probably about to go up in quite a, hockey stick kind of move. And they want to be ready to sell stock when that happens. Okay. I don't think they want to sell stock at $3 a share. Because you're at this moment where, like, if you kill the stock now, it becomes harder, right? You guys have heard before, it's math's sake, right? If you lose like 70%, you need like 200% to break even again, right? Something like that. Kind of the same situation. The further the stock falls, the harder it is to get back up to, let's say, $8 where it was before. There's something coming that most people don't know about, okay? And that is an update to 2025 ARR. Dan Wagner said that this was going to happen in December. I don't know what day it's going to happen. We may wake up to the headline tomorrow that instead of 150 million in ARR, which was the prior target from Rezolve, maybe that is 200 million, okay, for 2025. I would imagine management believes that's going to send the stock skyrocketing, okay? Management already knows that Rezolve trades at a severe discount to other AI stocks. Rezolve literally put out a press release highlighting the valuation of Rezolve compared to peers. Okay, great. So the stock gets to $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 a share. You're gonna start to see the company selling stock. I don't think it's gonna be in the kind of fashion though that destroys the stock. But you know, a process, right? It almost has to be because of the low volume. Like if you have 7 million shares that trade hands, how many shares you think Rezolve could sell without impacting the price of the stock that much? Right? Like 500,000 maybe, okay? Couple 100,000 on a 10 million volume day. Rezolve could probably sell 500,000 to a million shares without affecting the stock price too much. You're going to add selling pressure, but without crashing the stock. Okay. I am giving the company the benefit of the doubt here. I'm trying to think logically about this, right? Think if I was in the management role and I wanted to raise capital at some point and I thought my stock was trading at a larger discount than it should be, and I was about to beat 2025 ARR and announce that potentially this week, I would want to have the stock ready to sell, but I wouldn't be like dumping the stock on the markets before that news came out, right? If I believe it was going to send the stock up a lot, then I would want to be ready for that. Now, for anyone that does not know where I'm getting this from, again, Dan Wagner said they were going to update ARR in December. Rezolve is a UK-based company, in case anyone did not know that. Okay? If you did not know that, like, you need to do some research on Rezolve. Like, come to your own conclusions. I am not a financial advisor, okay? But Rezolve is not legally required to tell you jack shit in December. They don't have to say a word about ARR, nothing, okay? It would make zero sense to me personally if Rezolve came out and missed 2025 ARR targets and then announced that voluntarily. That would make zero sense to me. That would be a questionable move. I would probably have to sell the stock in that scenario. Now, if Rezolve comes out and dumps on the marketplace at $3 a share, I would have to sell the stock in that scenario. That would be a poor management decision that I could not get behind. Okay? You don't sell your stock when you think it's trading at a discount after it's fallen from $8.50 down to $3. Okay? You don't sell your stock down 64% in 2 months. Okay? You let it recover a bit. You give the market some news. You let the stock get back to at least $5 a share. Something like that. Now, especially then, we are heading into what should be a strong month in December. I talked about this in other videos, but you've seen like the more recession-proof stocks, the healthcare, consumer staples, some of those companies leading this market higher. What you have not seen a lot of is market participation, single stock strength, especially in the AI trade, in the hypergrowth trade. Now, not all AI stocks are equal. You know, some AI stocks I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Okay? The companies that are not going to have any revenue in the next couple of years, right? The pre-revenue stage companies, unless they're like going to start generating revenue next year, I don't want to touch any of those stocks, right? If you're a no revenue company in 2026, I don't care if you're AI this or that, promise the future, I don't want to touch those companies, okay? So not all of these AI stocks are going to come roaring back to life, but a stock like Rezolve, I think should. Hyper growth company like Rezolve that is targeting a multi-hundred, if not trillion plus dollar industry, should have plenty of room to grow from here. There's no clear winner in AI e-commerce, and from what we can tell from what Dan Wagner has said, even though they don't share contracts all too often with us, uh, Rezolve AI is doing quite well. And again, just implying here that Rezolve beats 2025 ARR. The future looks bright for Rezolve. You should see an end of the year rally for some of these AI stocks and for some of the, more hyper growth areas. Okay. Not all of them, right? You want to stay away from the bad companies, but I think Rezolve is one of the good companies, especially trading at a significant value discrepancy to your other AI stocks. Okay, so we've talked about that. There's the bit of the tactical trade as well from a broader market perspective. Like, even if next year people thought it was going to be crap, we're going to be getting a Fed rate cut December 10th. We do have some economic data this week. The bigger data comes out on December 16th, but nonetheless, we still get a Fed rate cut. Wall Street is underpositioned in this market. They're underperforming the S&P. Logically, there should probably be a chase. You tend to get a strong end of the year in markets because Wall Street underperforms, because there's that aspect of hedge funds and institutions don't want to exit a year massively underperforming the markets, right? So tactically speaking, you should have a rally. But even into next year, things look pretty good. Big, beautiful bill, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax changes in the tax code like depreciation and CapEx changes, and consumer maybe getting better, real estate picking up, AI adoption continuing to grow, additional Fed rate cuts, a new Fed chair, so on and so forth. The bull case for next year is very strong. And if you're underweight this market, I don't think you want to be underweight in 2026, right? I think that's a bad year to be underweight. And I think this does help Rezolve's case as well. Now, ideally, you want to see Rezolve start to report on a quarterly basis, which Dan Wagner has suggested they will. He told us, months ago that he was going to. And that's good. Beating 2025 ARR, that's going to be good. And sharing contracts. Dan Wagner basically said they were going to do all three of these things. Hasn't happened yet. Does it happen in 2026? Maybe, because it's one thing to say you're going to hit a target. It's another thing to show the progression of hitting that target. Rezolve projecting to grow at 333% next year. Sounds fantastic, but it's literally just one comment. Okay, Wall Street wants to see the progress in that. And I think the other part of Rezolve is there's not a lot of attention on the stock. All it's really going to take, what do you think a partnership with OpenAI or Amazon or something like that would do? It would send Rezolve AI mainstream. Rezolve, 10 million shares trading hands on any given day. Times that by $3 a share is $30 million worth of dollars trading in Rezolve. That's nothing. Literally pennies compared to some of these other AI stocks that have that, mainstream attention. So when I put the whole story together here, I'm optimistic for Rezolve. Now, could tomorrow the stock be red? Maybe. Could be a self-fulfilling prophecy where a lot of retail investors are like, oh my gosh, dilution could be coming. And even though nothing has happened yet, even though the stock did not react negatively on Friday, maybe people want to get out in anticipation of that. But I actually just think it's Rezolve being ready to sell stock after the 2025 ARR guidance and after the stock goes up. I think management thinks the stock is going to go up. Now, from a technical perspective, the MACD line is above the blue line, so that's positive. Typically tends to cause, rallies, right? Anytime you've bought the stock, when the MACD line goes above the blue line, you've made money. Okay, every time. Sometimes on a very short-term basis. Sometimes you get longer rallies. But that's a very positive indicator. And really, as the stock has only just traded sideways recently. So that's clearly positive. The RSI is at 36, so not a lot of relative strength. It's off of the low of 24, so you've definitely seen somewhat of an improvement. But again, relative strength is relative to itself and relative to the markets, right? So it's really just telling you Rezolve's kind of underperforming what the markets are doing, right, from a relative basis. Now, there's beta and other things that go into that, but not to be too complicated, this is happening on a broader market basis. As I said, you've seen the healthcare, the consumer staples recover, but you have not seen the AI stocks or the growth stocks actually recover too much. And I think with the S&P less than 1% away from all-time highs again, you need to see those other areas start to participate to get this market to continue higher. Now, Tom Lee said that Bitcoin could be at new all-time highs by the end of this year. That's a 38% rally from here. That's a crazy prediction. If that were to happen, I would imagine Rezolve's a $6, $7, $8 stock. Again, there can be variables here, and I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a financial planner. Come to your own conclusions. But that's the way that I'm thinking about Rezolve right now in the markets. But yes, could Rezolve be red tomorrow? Of course. I think it would be more of a self-fulfilling prophecy, though, versus, like, we actually have bad news. Because nothing has happened. Just Rezolve now has authorized the selling of 48 million shares at some point on the open market. But how much selling can they actually do with the volume as low as it is? Not very much. Okay. But again, I do think Rezolve is just doing that because there's big news coming. And, if they want to dilute $5, $6, $7, $8 slowly and sell stock over time, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But if they want to dump stock at $3 a share when they don't urgently need to, they should have, I would imagine, still over $150 million in cash right now. Plenty of money to fund operations through, I would imagine, most of 2026. Like, to dilute at $3 a share, that would be a bad management decision, and that's really the only reason I sell stock in companies I invest in, is when management makes very bad decisions, and that would be one of them. So that's not what I think Rezolve is going to do, but there's always the risk of that. So got to keep an open mind no matter how bullish you are on a company. So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. What are you thinking about tomorrow? Hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Check that link out down below in the description of today's episode if you have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.